Got an oldie but goodie one for you. Flying by the seat of my pants again. Flying by the seat of my pants. But I'm going live anyway. I'm doing my job. And that's all I know what to say. Good morning in the good way, everybody. How are you doing? Happy Friday. Happy weekend to you. It is May 31st. It's going to be June 1st tomorrow. What? June 1st tomorrow. Wow. Half the year just about over. Can you believe it? Oh man, I can't even believe it. Wow. I hope you're all doing great. I'm doing great. I am doing great. Tomorrow is June 1st. It's planting day in Humboldt County. Everybody knows it's planting day, June 1st. I hope you got some food growing because the food in the stores is nasty, you guys. It is nasty. I hope you're reading the ingredients of the food in the stores these days because it's awful. They're throwing cricket flour in some of the stuff. Hi, Jen, my little biker babe rebel. You troublemaker, you. I hope you're $500 richer and not in trouble. That's what I was thinking. Man, what a great call we had last night. Can't talk about any of it because it's private, but what I'm really loving and enjoying is how you're in the right group when the answer is, well, I'll have to talk to the assembly and we'll see what everybody says. And there's a consensus. There's not one or five people that are running the show and telling you what to do. They're actually asking for your opinion, and that's a proper and true assembly. There's a lot of faker ones out there, but I'm pretty sure we are in the right one where they do requisitions that are answered. There's a lot of faker frauds out there. We're going to have to talk about that again real soon. But today we are on lesson number, is it 16? This is so confusing because we have I think we're on principle 15. Or no, let me see. Yeah, we're on principle 15. And therefore we'll be reviewing lesson 14. What is very confusing for me is I'm not in line with their lessons and principles. They're just one behind and I'm two. And that's neither here nor there for you. But hey, Kiss Off, good to see you. Long time no see. Astawa, you are usually here. I know. You're just a quiet one, Thank you for all being here, Echo. All the smart ones are here. We're here to learn. Today is a little bit of a longer reading than it's been, but the book is really short. It's not a really big book. And look at one of these pages is even just pictures. So it's free market. Today we're going to be talking about Karl Marx and capitalism and all that good stuff. I'm going to call you later. We'll talk then. Let's see. Let me get to these answers here. Let me get to my share screen. We do have the questions up already, just like the other day. Oh, good. Well, good. I'm glad to know you're around. I know there's a lot of people that are watching that don't really say hi a lot, and you guys know I'm so good with that. I'm super good with that. I'm not one to be asking for like, share, subscribe. I don't have a problem with people that do that. I'm just not a big self-promoter or marketer. I prefer others do that for me. Let another lips praise you and not your own. That's actually a biblical principle that I prefer, and I'm very comfortable with it. But I do understand that there are some people that need to have their message go out more. I would love my message to go out more too, but this isn't my message. This is just something we're all learning as individuals more about our Constitution, our principles, our foundation, our history. And there's a lot of information out there for it. There's a lot of information out there for that stuff. I am no authority on it, but I am trying to do my part because I have to stream. I have to talk about the things that are going on here or else I will go crazy. And so what I've done is honed in my topics and really just try to focus on what is truly lawful and what is unlawful. And just to do a little review, we're going over these 28 principles of liberty. We are on number 15, and this principle is the highest level of prosperity occurs when there is a free market economy and a minimum of government regulations. Oh, how we love that kind of talk, don't we? And let's see, principle 14 will be our review. Let me get to those answers. Let's see. Founders considered the land and product of the earth. Number 1, the founders considered the land and products of the earth as a gift from God. Isn't it so frustrating as we talk about these principles? Every time God comes up, it's like, oh, well, that's where we lose a lot of people, isn't it? It's a shame. And we can see why it was so important for the evil people in this earth, particularly the satanic people, to make God irrelevant and morals and history so unimportant and even mock us, how we've been mocked. And I do want to share, I hope I can share it this weekend, a really great video about why people believe the Bible, and it's about the scribes. It's Josh McDowell, and it's one of those videos that was part of that series that I shared earlier this week with Chris Ann Hall. I do want to stream that whole series. It's about reclaiming America for Christ. Most people don't have a problem with Jesus's teachings. You got to be really something else. I don't want to call you evil, but if you got a problem with Jesus, you got some big problems. Jesus Christ was awesome, the biggest peacemaker, and these founding fathers took the basics of the biggest religions and agreed this is a foundation we can get on. No, you don't have to be Christian, you don't have to be Buddhist, you don't have to be Hindu, but there's these 5 top principles, and I'm going to do my best to eventually get I'm going to have to do my own comprehension of all of that and just lay it out for us, because we brush past that really quick. And I think that would be huge for America to understand. Look, we got to get on the same page here. Okay. And it's not ever going to be with godlessness. Those people will not accept the Constitution because there's so much about God in it. So the founders considered land and the products of the earth as a gift from God. What? Not your government? Not your government. Okay, I'll get serious here. 2, to gain dominion or subdue means to have exclusive control. 3, ownership means to have legally protected exclusiveness. 4, without ownership or property rights, 4 things would occur. It says name 2, but we have all 4 here. Incentive is destroyed, deprived of fruits and labor, marauding bands, bullies, mafia, bare subsistence level. Have you seen California lately? This is a socialist state in most every way, I would say. You have so many people not working, just barely making it on what the government gives them. They don't even have a place to use the bathroom or sleep at night. But this is how our leaders in Humboldt County think that that's the best thing to do with our tax money. Just give them some money, just enough. Make sure they have lots of needles. And, let's do some beautiful murals around town because, we're polishing a turd around here is what we're doing with that, in my opinion. 5, at what point, according to Locke, does something in nature become one's property? As soon as he puts labor into it. 6, how did Locke show the socialist argument of having all things common is impractical and fallacious? Well, if everyone owned everything, one would have to ask everyone's permission to pick an apple, and he would starve to death. 7. What is sacred? Property or the right to property? The right to property. 8. Give the reason Abraham Lincoln said we should let people become rich so that all can see if it is possible to become rich. 9. Private property is really an extension of one's life. 8. Give the reason Abraham, 10. I'm on number 10. Taking from the haves and giving to the have-nots is a violation of property rights. 11. The best story to illustrate how a congressman learned that it is unconstitutional for the government to redistribute the wealth is the account of Congressman Davy Crockett. Now, wait a minute. I don't remember us even reading about Davy Crockett. Okay, that we're probably... No, I don't understand. I did read Principle 14, didn't I? Did I skip ahead to the next principle? Did I read Davy Crockett and actually not comprehend about it? Do you guys remember us reading about Davy Crockett? I do not. I do not. Perhaps we did. Sometimes I can read things and actually not be taking it in. Does that ever happen to you? I mean, it's possible. It's possible that I did that. I remember Vex teaching me about Davy Crockett again. Of course, I had heard of Davy Crockett, but not since I've been in elementary school. Great congressperson to read about. I guess we did. I don't know. 12. In his veto message of a private welfare bill, President Grover Cleveland said, though the people should support the government should not support the people. I remember reading that. 13. According to President Cleveland, how should the misfortunes of citizens be relieved by the charity of fellow citizens? 14. Prior to 1936, the Supreme Court held that redistribution of wealth was contrary to the letter and spirit of the Constitution. 13. According to President Cleveland, how should the misfortune of... Oh, darn it. I'm sorry. What am I doing? That's it. Okay. I told you I was flying by the seat of my pants today. Okay, but we're getting through it because that's how we roll around here. Excuse me, right? The 14th principle. Life and liberty are secure only as long as the right of property, is secure. Okay? Okay. Phew, I got through that. Wow. Come on, girl. Get it together. Get it together. How you guys doing? You still with me? Heather Joy, good to see you. Good to see you all. Thank you guys for being here. I so appreciate you. Here we go with the reading. This is good stuff. I personally love reading about capitalism and communism and socialism because those who are doomed to not, those that do not know their history are doomed to repeat it. Let's not repeat this. Let's not repeat this. Okay. Let's not and say we did. Okay, here we go. 15th principle. I'm just in a goofy mood today. Thank God it's Friday. 15th principle. The highest level of prosperity occurs when there is a free market economy and a minimum of government regulations. Oh, yeah. The founders were fascinated with the possibility of setting up a political and social structure based on natural law. But what about economics? Were there natural laws for the marketplace? A tome of 5 books on the subject was published in just the nick of time, which gave them the answer. It came out in 1776 and was called The Wealth of Nations. It was written by a college professor in Scotland named Adam Smith. This brilliant work is not easy reading, but it became the watershed between mercantilism and the doctrines of free market economics. It fit into the thinking and experiences of the founders like a hand in a glove. Thomas Jefferson wrote, in a political economy, I think Smith's Wealth of Nations is the best book extant. Adam Smith's free enterprise economics tried first in America. Other writings in Europe, such as Psychocrats in France or Physiocrats in France, were advocating a free market economy, but nowhere on the earth were these principles being practiced by any nation of size or consequence. Hence the 5,000 year leap, also known as a miracle. Therefore, the United States was the first people to undertake the structuring of a whole national economy on the basis of natural law and the free market concept described by Adam Smith. Among other things, this formula called for the following. 1. Specialized production. Let each person or corporation of persons do what they do best. 2. Exchange of goods takes place in a free market environment without governmental interference in production, prices, or wages. Whew, imagine that. 3. The free market provides the needs of the people on the basis of supply and demand with no government-imposed monopolies. 4. Prices are regulated by competition on the basis of supply and demand. 5. Profits are looked upon as the means by which production of goods and services is made worthwhile. 6. Competition is looked upon as the means by which quality is improved, quantity is increased, and prices are reduced. Oh, remember when we learned about the pen, when the first pen came out? That might have been in the other book, but it was like $12 for a pen at one time. As more competition arose and more pen makers became available, they got cheaper. So that was a great concept there. So here are the 4 principles that must be maintained to keep prosperity at the maximum level. And they're here on the side picture. I want to go back to it. Freedom to try, freedom to buy, freedom to sell, freedom to fail. By 1905, the United States had become the richest industrial nation in the world. With only 5% of the Earth's continental land area and merely 6% of the world's population, the American people were producing over half of almost everything. Clothes, food, houses, transportation, communication, even luxuries. It was a great tribute to Adam Smith. Way to go, buddy. The role of government in economics. The founding fathers agreed with Adam Smith that the greatest threat to economic prosperity is the arbitrary intervention of the government into the economic affairs of private business and the buying public. Historically, this has usually involved fixing prices, fixing wages, controlling production, controlling distribution, granting monopolies, or subsidizing certain products. Nevertheless, there are 4 areas of legitimate responsibility which properly belong to government to prevent 1. Illegal force in the free marketplace to compel purchase or sale of products. 2. Fraud in misrepresenting the quality, location, or ownership of the item being sold or bought. 3. Monopoly, which eliminates competition and results in restraint of trade. 4. Debauchery of the cultural standards and moral fiber of society by commercial exploitation of vice, pornography, obscenity, drugs, liquor, prostitution, or commercial gambling. The perspective of the founders in the economic role of government may be gathered from sentiments such as these by Washington. Let vigorous measures be adopted not to limit the prices of articles, for this, I believe, is inconsistent with the very nature of things and impracticable in itself, but to punish speculators, forestallers, and extortioners, and above all, to sink the money by heavy taxes. To promote public and private economy, encourage manufacturers. After 1900, Adam Smith got lost in the shuffle. In spite of the fact that the fruits of the free market economy were making the United States the biggest and richest industrial nation in the world, the beginning of the 20th century saw many prominent and influential leaders losing confidence in the system. These included wealthy industrialists, heads of multinational banking institutions, leaders in the academic world, and some of the more innovative minds in the media. The same feverish restlessness was taking hold in similar circles in Europe. It was true, as it is with all systems, that the market economy was in need of some adjustment and fine tuning, but these leaders were getting ready to throw the entire system overboard. The problems of the day included a number of large scale strikes, the rise of powerful trusts, the mysterious recurrence of boom and bust cycles, and the rise of a new populist movement in which certain agricultural and labor groups were demanding that the government get involved in the redistribution of the wealth. Many of these problems were either caused or aggravated by the very people who were demanding a new system. Can you say agitators? The new system would involve extensive government regulation, if not outright expropriation of major industries and natural resources. In Europe, certain confederations of wealthy families had gained control of their respective governments and were making a financial killing. Some of the wealthy families in America coveted the rich government monopolies of their transatlantic cousins. It was in this climate that Adam Smith and the free market economy fell out of favor. We have already discussed the rise of the Intercollegiate Socialist Society, which was built on major university campuses at the vanguard of the new era. Collectivism, socialism, government ownership of industry, subsidy of the farmers, and a whole spectrum of similar ideas were permeating the country when World War I broke out. This greatly accelerated the idea of strong centralized government with regulatory power over aspect of the marketplace. John Chamberlain describes what happened to Adam Smith. By the 1920s, the debunking of the Founding Fathers was in full swing. The obsolescence of the Constitution was discussed openly. The ideas of Adam Smith were considered archaic. John Chamberlain, one of the foremost writers of our own day, was just coming up through college. He describes the academic climate of that era. When I was taking a minor in economics as a congruent part of a history major back in the 1920s, Robert Hutchins had not yet started his campaign to restore a reading of the great books to college courses. So we never read Adam Smith's The Wealth of Nations. We heard plenty about it, however. The professors treated it condescendingly. We were told it was the fundamentalist Bible of the old dog-eat-dog type of businessman. The businessman in that Mechanism time were considered the natural enemies of disinterested learning. We, as students, regarded them as hypocrites. They talked competition and invoked the name of Adam Smith to bless it. Then they voted for the high-tariff Republican Party. Somehow, Adam Smith, as the man who had justified a business civilization, got the blame for everything. We weren't very logical in those days, and we were quite oblivious to our own hypocrisy in making use of our businessmen fathers to pay our college tuition fees and to stake us to trips to Europe. There's only two kinds of hypocrites in the world, one who will admit they are one at times and one who will not. That's me. Those are my words. Adam Smith out, Karl Marx in. John Chamberlain eventually came to realize what the intellectual leaders of the day were doing. They were deprecating the founders and the free market economy to create a vacuum. Is that right? Deprecating? To create a vacuum which would then be filled with a completely new formula. Their new economic nostrum was the very toxin the founders had warned against. Chamberlain describes what happened. The depression that began in 1929 is generally considered the watershed that separates the new collectivist age from the old or rugged individual age. Before Franklin Roosevelt, we had the republic, checks and balances, limited government, inalienable rights to liberty and property, and all that. After 1933, we began to get the centralized state and interventionist controls of industry. Actually, however, the inner spirit of the old America had been hollowed out in the 20s. The colleges had ceased to teach anything important about our heritage. You had to be a graduate student to catch up with the Federalist Papers or with John Calhoun's Disquisition on Government, or with anything by Herbert Spencer, or with The Wealth of Nations. We were the ignorant generation. The Depression began our education, but the first great book in economics that we read was Marx's Capital. We had nothing to put against it. Talk of planning filled the air. We read George Sewell and Stuart Chase on the need for national blueprints and national investment boards and government investment. Keynes was still in the future, but his system was already being laid brick by brick, and Adam Smith was still a word of derision. The rediscovery of Adam Smith. My own education was similar to that of John Chamberlain. I was less than a decade behind him. We were all part of a generation of lost Americans who had to rediscover our heritage the hard way. For nearly a quarter of a century, the founders had been relegated to the pre-industrial past. Certain professors spoke despairingly of what they called the myths the founders believed. The founding fathers were all very old-fashioned. Gradually, however, the intellect light of day dawned on many thousands of that lost generation. Ivor Thomas wrote his book, The Socialist Tragedy, explaining what socialism had done to Europe. Max Eastman wrote his reflections on the failure of socialism, explaining what socialism had done to America and the world. For some, there was a genuine awakening. The traditional values of the founders began to emerge with a new message of promise, so long neglected. John Chamberlain describes his rediscovery of Adam Smith. We had to discover the real Adam Smith the hard way, by living our mistakes and by being led to the whole body of the literature of freedom that had created the American federal system. Only then were we able to appreciate Smith. Ironically, our education paralleled that of Adam Smith himself, which took place over a period of a dozen years between the close of the 7 Years' War and the outbreak of the American Revolution. We would have been saved so much trouble if we had only been compelled to read and digest The Wealth of Nations in a first college course in economics with James Madison's political theory as a side dressing. Smith's book is indeed the beginnings of everything that is important to economic theory, the lack of clarity on value theory notwithstanding. It should be the natural starting point for students of economics, for the simple and compelling reason that it is anticipated Ludwig von Mises by a full century and a half in considering economics as part of a wider science of human choices. Smith backed into his study by way of a general preoccupation with human destiny in a way that should be utterly convincing to our own pragmatic day. As this book goes to press, America is strenuously struggling to restore a few of the lost jewels from the founders' treasury. An appreciation for Adam Smith is looming larger. If it continues, there is hope for a brighter future for the next generation than for the one just passing. A genuine return to the founders, however, will also involve the completion of something which has never been done, neither in the founders' day nor in ours. It is the need for a genuine monetary reform along the lines the founders envisioned, but were never able to launch. One responsibility of government never completely filled. Almost done, just a couple more pages. At the Constitutional Convention, the founders determined that they would make the American dollar completely independent of any power or combination of powers outside the American people. They therefore gave exclusive power to issue and control money to the people's representatives, the Congress, and forbade anybody, even the states, to meddle with it. Not only was Congress to be held responsible for the issuing of money, but it was to see that its purchasing power remained fixed. In other words, the value of the money was to remain steady and reliable, not only in the United States, but also in relation to foreign money. They therefore stated in the Constitution that Congress would have the power to coin money, regulate the value thereof, and of foreign coin. All money was to be coined in precious metal. Paper notes were to be promises to pay in gold or silver, not legal tender as such. States were strictly forbidden to allow debts to be paid except in terms of gold or silver. Washington stated, "We should avoid the depreciation of our currency. But I conceive this end would be answered as far as might be necessary by stipulating that all money payments should be made in gold and silver, being the common medium of commerce among nations. What went wrong? Here is one area where a great idea of the founders was never adequately implemented. The founders were just coming out of a devastating depression when the Constitution was adopted, and under pressure from both European and American financial interests, a whole series of policy errors were committed which have continued to this day. For example, the issuing of money was turned over to a private consortium of bankers who set up a privately owned bank called the Bank of the United States. A similar arrangement exists today under the Federal Reserve System. The indignant protest of Thomas Jefferson can be heard across the vista of 2 whole centuries. If the American people ever allow the banks to control the issuance of their currency, first by inflation and then by deflation, the banks and corporations that will grow up around them will deprive the people of all property until their children will wake up homeless on the continent their fathers occupied. The issuing power of money should be taken from the banks and restored to Congress and the people to whom it belongs. Fractional banking. The bank was allowed to issue 3 or 4 times more paper notes or loans than it had in assets. This is called fractional banking because the bank has only a fraction of the assets needed to back up the paper money or credit which it has issued. Once again, Jefferson protested. The banks themselves were doing business on capital assets, 3/4 of which were fictitious. Jefferson foresaw that the banks would inflate the economy by loaning out fictitious paper money with no assets behind it. This would boom the economy. Then, when the financiers had lured borrowers into a precarious position, they would call for a bust and foreclose on the property for which the bank had virtually furnished nothing. At the first signs of a pending bust, Jefferson lamented, "This fictitious capital is now to be lost and to fall on somebody. It, the bank, must take on those who have property to meet it, and probably on the less cautious part, who, not aware of the impending catastrophe, have suffered themselves to contract or to be in debt, and must now sacrifice their property of a value many times the amount of the debt. We have been truly sowing the wind and are now reaping the whirlwind." Amazingly, this disastrous pattern of boom and bust has been repeated off and on for over 200 years without the cause of it being corrected. A sound monetary reform program is still begging for a hearing. An economy of debt instead of wealth. The financiers who gained control of American finance built the economy on debt instead of wealth. Jefferson's protest came out as follows. At the time we were funding our national debt, we heard much about a public debt being public blessing, that the stock of representing it was a creation of active capital for the ailment of commerce, manufactures, and agriculture. This paradox was well adopted to the minds of believers in dreams. Jefferson, Jackson, and Lincoln all tried to get the monetary program turned around so that Congress would issue its own money and banks would be required to loan on existing assets rather than use fictitious money based on merely a fraction of their assets. In other words, they wanted to get rid of the boom and bust cycle. At one point, when the idea seemed to be catching on, the London Times came out with a frantic editorial stating, "In that mischievous financial policy, which had its origin in the North American Republic during the late war, in that country, the Civil War, should become indurated down to a fixture, then what government will furnish its own money without cost? It will pay off its debts and be without debt. It will have all the money necessary to carry on its commerce. It will become prosperous beyond precedent in the history of the civilized governments of the world. The brains and the wealth of all countries will go to North America. That government must be destroyed, or it will destroy every monarchy on the globe." a pressing opportunity. All of this should demonstrate that somewhere up the trail, the leadership of the United States has an opportunity to add one more burst of momentum to the upward thrust of the 5,000-year leap. It will be a monumental monetary reform based on the principles which the founders understood but were never able to implement it. As Jefferson said toward the latter days of his life, we are overdone with banking institutions which have banished the precious metals and substituted a more fluctuating and unsafe medium. These have withdrawn capital from useful improvements and employments to nourish idleness. These are evils more easily to be deplored than remedied. On another occasion, Jefferson lamented, "We are completely saddled and bridled, and the bank is so firmly mounted on us that we must go where it will guide us." Yep. Not much more to say about that. Hi, Indy. Good to see you, honey. I do have my little prayer warrior book. I will end this little reading on today. Thank you, Jen, for this little book. We're on the third one. Let's see. I've read 2 prayers for protection, prayers for deliverance, prayers for healing. Who needs some healing? Let me tell you about my Jesus. Do you feel that empty feeling? 'Cause pain's done all it's stealing, and you're desperate for some healing? Well, let me tell you about my Jesus. He makes a way when there ain't no way. Rises up. Okay, here we go. Lord, I thank you that you are the God who heals. Thank you, Jesus, that you have borne our griefs and carried our sorrows. You were wounded for our transgression and bruised for our iniquities, and by your stripes we are healed. Thank you that you took our infirmities and bore our sicknesses. By the authority given me in the name of Jesus, I pray for healing for everybody here in this chat, everybody that's going to watch it later, everybody that needs healing. Is that too much? No. I pray that no plans of the enemy for this people's destruction will succeed. Bring healing to every part of our bodies. Whether this infirmity is healed instantly or requires a convalescent period, I give you the glory as our creator and healer. And I would add, we believe, God, help our unbelief. In Jesus' name we pray. Jesus went about all the cities and villages, teaching in their synagogues, preaching the gospel of the kingdom and healing every sickness and every disease among the people. Matthew 9:35. I will say a verse that came to my mind. You know, the funniest question I ever heard Jesus ask somebody is this: do you want to be made well? Do you want to be made well? Thank you, Echo. I appreciate you too. Sometimes people need to be asked that. Do you want to be made well? I mean, some people enjoy their state of suffering. That's true. Some people actually do. Woe is me, the Eeyores, you know, these kind of people, that can change in an instant. You know, somebody full of joy can come around them and just love on them and just inspire them. Like, yeah, I want to be made well. Let's be those people. Let's be the hands and feet of Jesus Christ. And let's do the work that needs to be done. Because things ain't getting any better. You know, if we don't get busy, there are things we need to be doing. And I'm learning as fast as I can. I'm learning. I'm really honored to be able to teach with you. God has bestowed upon me gifts where I know how to read. I can set up my computer and share it with you. Those are talents that I have. You all have talents too. Thank you for, you know, tapping in, seeking God. Ask God, what is it that you can do to help save the country right now? Because prayer warriors are very precious and people think they can't do anything. But man, if you're praying for your county, pray that God will deliver your county from evil. Pray that God will help your county to assemble and self-govern, because we're really behind. There's a lot of work to be done. And the more I learn about what needs to be done, the more I realize, like, we're really behind. You know, we got things to do. However, I will share with you some good news. I got a little reprimanded yesterday I love when someone says, "How dare you?" No, I don't love it. But when someone says, "How dare you?" you know that they're very passionate about something. And last night we were in a room after the call and we were talking about some things. And me and this other woman named Dee were a little gloomy about things. And we were just lamenting, like, oh, it's just not happening. There's things that are not happening fast enough for us. But I want to share something with you. California, there are a lot of cases that are going through. This is just released on May 17th. Okay. And there are many cases here where it's the people. California is interim assembled. There are grand juries that are being held. San Joaquin County, San Bernardino County, Ventura County, Los Angeles County, Alameda County, Tulare County, Fresno County, Sacramento County, Kern County, Riverside County. The people are doing work. Santa Cruz County, Napa County, San Diego County, Santa Clara County. It's not like we can all just assemble in a big old football field and let everybody know, here we are. No, we got to know this individually. We need to learn the language so that we know the people that are doing the true work, because a lot of people take the truth. They just need a little bit. They just take a little bit and they spoon feed it to people who aren't willing to do the work and look around and focus. And you're vulnerable. You're very vulnerable right now, because a lot of people are waking up right now and a lot of people are looking around like, okay, well, where do I go? What do I do? And I only really know of one group that is that has a record of requisitions, and it's here. It's the National Assembly. These are the calls I'm on every week. My friend Jen is on the calls. Some of the people in here have been on the calls, but you want receipts, you go over here to this page, you look over here to the left, the blog archive, and just start clicking on these links. There's lots of stuff here. Lots of stuff here. People can do works without this group if they have their own jury assembly, if they have their own de jure, grand jury. It's not like this is the only way, but you got to be quite educated to know what to do. Like my friend Devil Dog, he's not involved in the assembly. He has poked around in it, and he has offered some advice when it came to delegates. They weren't ready for it yet, though. And he has some things that he's not in agreement about with everything, but he does think that it is a good idea for me to be here. He has not said no. Now, when I was involved with the Anna Von Reitz group, he was like, get out of that group. What do you want to be in that group for? She's a bad seed. Anna Von Reitz is a deceiver. So is Vandersteel. So is most of these big end streamer people. They take a little bit of this information and then they lure people in. They pat themselves on the back. They prop themselves up, and then they get a paywall and they start making money. There's no money involved here. This is free. Just people that have invested their own blood, sweat, and tears and time into giving us this information. And it's a self-taught thing. We have to teach ourselves. So the best I can offer is, get involved, get on these calls. Every state has a weekly training call. And once a week, the states come together and have a call. And it's awesome. It's really great. So I just encourage you all to get involved in your county assembly. Get people involved. We're very much behind. Hi, Bonnie. Good morning. Good to see you, honey. I hope you put some clothes on by now. Well, I'm out of here. I'd like to come back and stream with you guys, as I always say, but I don't know that it ever is. I can't guarantee it's going to happen. I got some gardening to still do, but there are a couple things I'd like to share with you. So I don't know if I don't get back here on the weekend, I'll see you on Monday at 10:30. Thanks, Devil Dog. See y'all on the next one. Peace.